Came to Detroit like 1950, 51, and it was at the stage of when rock and roll was in its infancy, and you know would hear all of the Crows singing G, or you would hear Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers, or the Cadillacs doing Speedo, or the Five Keys doing one of their big hits, you know. So, but one of my all-time favorite groups, which I think was probably one of the best of all time, was the Flamingos, because they had different kind of harmonies between the Flamingos and the Moonglows. You know, we would really try and sound like them because the Moonglows were noted for, excuse me, the blow harmony, you know, and so we would get on the corner and we'd be standing there popping our fingers and, you know, blow harmony. And so, you know, we would emulate a lot of the groups, you know, of the day. And so, you know, that's the way it was at the time, standing on the corners and 11, 12 o'clock at night until somebody said, boy, get off the corner, we got to go to work, you know. And so, yeah, we would be there until wee hours of the morning almost. So, but it was fun, you know, listening at those groups and trying to emulate them. I first heard Melvin Franklin's voice with a group by the name of the Voice Masters. Now, I had heard the Voice Masters when they came out with Hope and Pray. They didn't have no bass singer, and the harmony was impeccable. So then they came out, I guess, X amount of months later, with Needed for Lovers Only Part 1 and 2. And Melvin was started off, I believe, with Boom Boom, and I said, who is that? Voice Master's got a bass? Jesus, he's something else. Now, I didn't know Melvin was just 16 years old, sounding like an old man, even way back then. So I went and bought the record, and I just sat there and I was listening. Now, at the time, my group, The Distance, consisted of Elbridge Bryan. Our bass singer at the time was Arthur Walton, James Crawford, Bernard Plain, and myself. But Art decided to quit singing, and that put me on a quest to find Melvin. And I guess as fate would have it, I'm walking down Woodrow Wilson, and Melvin was coming down Woodrow Wilson. And for whatever reason, I said, well, I be dogged. That's who I'm looking for. So back during those days, I would have the processed hairdo and the leather jacket and the tight pants and the white bucks. Melvin thought I was part of a gang, you know, and so when he saw me, he crossed over the street and I crossed over. Then he would cross over. I said, hey, man, you know, so it was back and forth until he finally stopped. And I said, I want to talk to you about singing with me. He said, well, I thought you was a gang, and I thought you was a gang member, and I thought you was going to beat me up. I said, no, I'm looking for you because I have a contract with a label, and my bass singer quit, and I'm looking for you. And he said, well, you have to talk to Mama Rose. So we walked all the way back to Claremont, which is where Melvin lived, and Melvin was so funny. When we got to Claremont, he stayed on one side and hid behind the tree. And I had to go across the street, ring the doorbell, and Mama Rose came, and I sat and talked with her and told her, you know, my name's Otis Williams, and we have a contract we're getting ready to record, and I would love for her son to sing with me. And I guess I put it nice enough and honest enough that Mama Rose said, well, Otis, you seem to be a nice young man, and I'll let my son sing with you. You know, now you have to take care of my boy now because, you know, that's my child, and I'm going to put him over in your care. And Melvin, all the time, Mama Rose and me sitting up there talking, Melvin behind the tree, peeping around the tree. And then she waved for him to come on across the street and said, all right, son, you can sing with Otis. And from that day, because I was about 16, he was 16, and I was 17. Now, Melvin only did that vocal part with the Voice Masters just for the record. So he wasn't in the group per se because he was still in school, but he had such a heck of a voice that they used him. And from that day until his demise in '95, him and I, you know, were together all the time. We met Paul and Eddie. See, we used to be managed by a guy named Milton Jenkins. Now, Milton Jenkins was a player, I mean, he had women and he was into all kind of action, but he also was a part-time manager. He managed my group, which we were, before the distance, we were the Siberians and the Question. So we went through a little metamorphosis of different names before we got to the distance. So at that time, he had the Primes, which consisted of Eddie Kendricks, Paul Williams, and a guy by the name of Kel Osborne, and they were a trio. At the same time, he also had a girls group, which was called the Primettes, and there was Diana, Mary, Flo, and a girl named Barbara. And there was 4 of them at the time. We would all rehearse. Milton would find a rehearsal place, and each group would be rehearsing. That's how we met, Paul and Eddie. And for whatever reason, the Primes, we lost contact with one another, and then we found out that they broke up. Eddie went back to Birmingham. Paul stayed in Detroit, but they started out in Cleveland and migrated to Detroit. And as fate would have it again, we had signed, my group had changed, and we were called The Distance. We had signed with Johnny May Matthews, a little label called Northern Records, and we recorded this very popular tune called Come On. And at that time, it was Melvin Franklin, Elbridge Bryant, Richard Street, James Crawford, and myself. And we went in, recorded this record, and it was a very popular record. And we used to have to do record hops. And so Johnny May sold the master to a larger company for national distribution. So she came back to Detroit after selling the master. She just showing all these $100 bills, and so, oh wow, and she was happy. And so, but I said, well, do we get any royalties for writing? Because I wrote the song, and I guess with me asking about royalties, it ticked her off. And she said, no, you don't get none of this money. This is my money, And I said, well, but royalties of some kind, because so anyway, she got kind of perturbed, and she said, well, if you're going to have that attitude and start asking about royalties, I'm going to take the car. And at the time, she had gotten us a 57 powder blue Buick drop top and had our name on the side. So she said, I'll take the car. And we said, take the car. She said, well, if you have that attitude, I'll take the name. So we said, take the name. We're young. We'll start all over again. And during the process of that, we used to do, like I said, record hops. And that's when I met Barry. Because we had heard of Barry, he was writing songs for Jackie Wilson and dealing with Barrett Strong and Smoke and the Miracles. So while we were on stage performing, you could see Smoke and the Miracles along with Barry coming in, because they were on the show as well. And when the audience finally let us off, after about 3 times of calling us back on stage, and finally came down, and I'm standing there, I said, wow, that's Smoke and the Miracles. And Barry was standing next to me. And he said, I like your guys' record, and should you ever leave where you are, come see me. I'm starting my own label. And he gave me his card. And that's what we did, because, like I said, Johnny May was mad at us for inquiring about royalties, and so we left. And I called over to Motown, and I spoke with Barry. He said, oh, good, okay, yeah, so this would call Mickey Stevens, and Mickey Stevens was, at the time, A&R director at Motown, and we went over. And we were the Elgins, because she, like I said, she took the name. And so we were nameless, but we called ourselves the Elgins for a little bit of a time, until we found out there was another group called the Elgins. And that's when we were standing out in front of Motown, and a guy by the name of Bill Mitchell, who used to work there. We were kicking around names, and Bill said, well, hey, what are we going to call you guys? And so we said, yeah, well, we don't know. And he said, well, what about Temptations? And I said, oh, I like that. And I asked the guys, and I never will forget, Paul said, hey, man, our name is whatever we make it, fine with me. So Bill Mitchell hollered up, to the legal department, which, when Motown was on West Grand Boulevard in a 2-story building, put on the contract, the Temptations. And from that was 1961, and that's when we became the Temptations. So one day I'm at home, and Eddie called. And he called me, he said, hey man, what you doing? I said, who is this? He said, it's Eddie, man, I'm back in town. I said, man, you just what I need. I need a tenor, because I said, we have a possible contract deal with Motown Records, and at that time, Richard Street had dropped out, James Pee Wee, he had dropped out. So it was just three of us. It was Elbridge Bryant, Melvin, and myself. And he said, well, fine. Hey, I like the way you guys sounded when you were, when we used to rehearse together. And then he said, well, can I bring Paul? Can Paul join? I said, man, bad as Paul is, please bring him. So Paul and Eddie came over to my place, and I never will forget, Paul walked over, and he had a guitar. And we started rehearsing, we call rehearsal. It was Elbridge Bryant, Melvin Franklin, myself, Paul, and Eddie. And that's when the formation of the Temps. And now, like I said, that was 1961. And the first song that we started rehearsing and practicing on was 100 Pounds of Clay by Gene McDaniels. We recorded, I think, around about like 7 or 8 records before we got the way you do the things you do. Barry believed in us so much that if Oh Mother Mine didn't do it, okay, we go back in. Check Yourself, okay, we go back in if that didn't do it. And we did Dream Come True and I Want a Love I Can See. It got so desperate at one time, Barry said, look, Nolan Strong had a song called Mind Over Matter. And it was very popular, so Barry called us and he said, look, we're going to do a cover job of Mind Over Matter, but we're going to give you guys another name. We were the Pirates. He said, now, if this record jumps off to be a hit, forget the Temptations, y'all have to be the Pirates. So we met it with mixed emotion. We said, yeah, we want a hit, but we said, Pirates? I mean, we'd have to come out on stage with all that pirate stuff. And so this was running all across our, so I said, oh, okay. But we went in, recorded, and it didn't do that well. But what each one of those records did for us was kept setting us up for the big one. And when we went in and did I Want a Love I Could See, that really started something to go on for momentum's sake. But one day, that's when, that had to be like 63. And that's when we had to let Al go. Now, David Ruffin had been hanging with us because him and I used to stay right across the alley. You can go through the alley to his place, and from his place, cross the alley into my building. And we were so popular that he said, man, I want to sing with you guys. I said, you want to sing with us? He said, man, you guys are something else. And I can believe that because David was a noted singer even then, and the fancy footwork, throwing the microphone up, dropping to his knees and swooping up. And I said, man, if you join us with already what we were doing, we would be something else. He said, well, I would like to sing, with you guys. And they auditioned. I wouldn't say audition, but anyway, Jimmy Ruffin and David was in my kitchen. We were talking about it, and Jimmy said he would like to sing with us too. But I said, "But Jimmy, you got bad feet. You can't do all that dancing," because we call him Cush feet. Because when he would walk, it was like this here. We were on stage at the Fox Theater, and then it's still Al, Paul, Melvin, Eddie, and myself. And Paul, being such a fantastic creator for his dancing, him and Melvin jumped off into a movement on stage, and the audience at the Fox Theater went crazy. So I said, Al, come on, man, we got to do that. Al said, no, man, we the pretty boys. Let them do it. We'll just stay back and be cool. That's when I said, no, he's got to go, to myself. So when he came off, I said, hey, man, you need to go. You need to go because you don't have the same spirit that everybody had to want to make it. And that's when David Ruffin joined. We put David in. That was, like I said, about December of '63. Most cases, when they would have quality control, we would be on the road. Or sometimes if we were in town, because I think quality control, I think that was held on Fridays. They would listen at everything that was recorded during the week. And there again, Barry's would later time down there, if you wasn't there at that particular time, he'd lock the door. And I even heard Smokey catching hell one time, getting in, smoke, Barry, it's me, smoke. For a minute, I didn't think they was going to let Smoke in, but hey, Smokey, that's Barry's man. So he did get in, but but you could walk by and you would hear him talking about, Yeah, no, what you think? I don't like it. Just on, all kind of different kind of, things being said. And well, if you like it, give it, you raise your hand for those that did like it, those that didn't like it. So it was a voting process, but he took that process from Ford Motor Company because he used to work at Ford's in the quality control. So he took that same kind of idea and instituted in Motown as far as checking out the releases, what should or should not be released, and if the song didn't have whatever, go back and record it and add whatever it would take for the song to become a hit. So it was a wonderful systematic kind of setup that Barry had, and the percentage of having hits was very high. Motown thrived off of that in a competitive kind of thing, that's what I think made Motown so great, was that the producers and songwriters would be going at it as far as getting a hit on the Supremes, the Four Tops, the Temps, Marvin Gaye, Martha and the Vandellas, so all the real top acts, producers and writers would be in there trying to come up with whatever song that so they could get the release. So it was a very competitive kind of thing, which made Motown excel. Oh yeah, we were pulling for everybody there. That was the wonderful thing about being at Motown, the camaraderie that we had for one another, that we wanted everybody to have a hit and to make it. Because see, one of the things that we missed out on, which wasn't, I guess, just wasn't meant to be. Barry wrote "Do You Love Me" for the Temps, but we were at King Solomon Baptist Church watching the Harmonizing Four, Dixie Hummingbirds, and a few other great gospel groups, and Barry couldn't find us. So when we came up to Motown the next day, they were saying, "Man, where were you guys?" Mr. Gordy was trying to, he was trying to find you guys because he had "Do You Love Me," great tune, but he ended up giving it to the Contours. And we said, "Oh, I'll be doggone. We missed out on it because "Do You Love Me," when it was released, it went, up to the top of the charts. But Paul said, "Hey, man, it just wasn't meant to be. We'll get ours in the right space and time." But it was a great place to be because the competition was thick as thieves back then. And I look back on it and it was great. When I first became aware of the great Charlie Atkins, I was about 15 years old. I was at the Fox Theater, and I saw Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers, and the Cadillacs came on before Frankie. When the Cadillacs came out and they did their bit, and they was singing and dancing, and they had those suits on that every time they moved, the suits, pants, leg, and coats would shimmy. I'm sitting there talking, ooh, my, and now the Fox Theater is the second largest indoor theater in America. Radio City is the first. So I would look around, and to see 5,000 plus people going crazy over what those brothers were doing on stage, I said, that's what I want to do. So I talked with one of the guys after the show. I was on the stage entrance outside, and I was talking to him, and I asked him, I said, "Man, you guys, you're dancing. How did y'all do that? Or who did that?" He said, "Well, it's a man that lives in New York named Charlie Atkins." I said, "Charlie Atkins?" He said, "Yeah, so, if you ever should want to sing and, want to do what we do, try and find Charlie Atkins." Little did I know, now, like I said, I was 15 or 16 years old, 21, 22 years old at the Fox Theater. They were doing the same thing for us. But I met Charlie at 64. We were in Washington, D.C. Rather, we met, but I talked to him a little more than the rest of the guys. And we were at the Howard Theater in D.C., and he was there with another client. And he saw what we did, and he said, "Oh, you guys are great. Love your record, and what you do on stage is really fantastic." But he said, "Now, if I had staged you guys," now man, this is 1964, he showed me what he would have given us for "God Smile So Bright." I never will forget the step, and he had us to open up, and our hands would be like this here. And I said, "Ooh," man, he said, "Yeah, but no, what Paul's got you guys doing is fantastic." And he said, "But yeah, just keep doing what you're doing." Yeah, so Charlie, when he came on the scene, which was 1966, and at that time, Motown had set up this here place called Artist Development, which Lon Fontaine, Maurice King, Charlie Atkins, did I say him? Harvey Fuqua, Johnny Allen, Maxine Powell, Ardina, I think, Johnson. They were in the heads of over at Artist Development, and Harvey Fuqua was responsible for bringing Charlie and setting up this Artist Development, because Motown's acts were really on a roll, far as they wanted us to grow, not only stay in the Chitlin circus, they want us to grow into other venues. So when Charlie came on, that's when we really turned it up a notch, far as learning the Hello Young Lovers. He started teaching us the choreography for that. Maurice King would teach us the vocals. Old Man River, Swanee, so he said, we want you guys to have a vast repertoire of songs, not just relegated to what your hits are about. Don't want you to be one-dimensional. We want you guys to be able to work and command good dollars or big dollars. Whether you never get a hit record or not, you can still work and do very well. So they were grooming us to be in the business for the long haul. And I'm very thankful, because this why we are still around today is because we always, like Shelley was saying, it would be easy to just do what we do and don't change. But we need to change and keep our show fresh. So when our audience come to see us, they say, oh, Tim's got something. Oh, okay. Keep it always fresh and interesting. So we never rest on our laurels. Whereas, you just say, well, we got enough hits. We don't have to change. No, you need to stay fresh. But this comes from being with the greats like Charlie Atkins, Lon Fontaine, Maurice King, Johnny Allen, Harvey Fuqua, Shelley. They would all instill these kind of qualities in us. And I'm very happy that they did. But Charlie, when he got hold to us, and now Pops, his stuff is not easy to do. Oh, you had to put your thinking cap on, because there was many a time that I would walk out. I'd be so mad at myself, I'd walk out in the parking lot gritting my teeth. Otis, you dumb, and after I would come back in and get it, I felt like a penny waiting for change, because it really is simple, but it isn't so simple, because Charlie would have a lot of little hit, you had to shift your weight. And then he said, boy, you can't go to Cleveland if you're in Cleveland. Move your ass, So, I mean, you would get, I said, Pops, why? Oh, he would call us some names that I won't put on the thing. But, when you would finally get it, you look like nobody else. So what Paul would do and what Pops would show us, we had the best of both worlds. So, and that also set us apart from, I guess, a lot of groups that was, at that time.